species of sponge was thought to be extinct. But then in 1987 a Canadian team of scientists discovered a cluster that was over 9,000 years old. It was over 9,000! That's pretty insane. Yeah, that's also a fact. They can live for thousands of years. They feed off plankton and other small sources of food and can filter enough water in 60 seconds to fill an Olympic-sized pool. They also don't look appetizing and mostly serve as homes to other kinds of fish and crustaceans and that stuff. Starfish tend to feed on them because they're really weird, but that's about it. The thing that makes them so interesting though is their ability to store carbon. Ever since the ice shelf started to disappear, they started appearing in Antarctica. They're called glass sponges because they're made of silica. If scientists are able to figure out the correlation between the two, then it might reveal some key factors about climate change. Can I say it never will be solved? Not quite, but it certainly does feel like a mystery worth solving. Number 9. The C-130. Another aircraft, gone without a trace. Chilean Air Force Flight C-130 left Patagonia, Chile and was bound for King George Island in Antarctica. They were meant to bring supplies and personnel to inspect a floating fuel supply line, but they never made it. They lost contact with the plane around 9:13 p.m. and no one heard anything about the plane having any issues. They conducted a search by air using aircrafts from the Chilean Air Force, Argentina, Brazil, the UK, US and Uruguay, but nothing. There were no signs of the crash, that is until debris was found floating 31 kilometers from its last known position. But to this day, no one knows exactly what happened during that fateful crash that stole their lives. Number 8. The Gamburtsev Mountains. Actual mountains of ice will have to melt until this mystery is completely solved. Until then, it's a pretty marvelous mountainous mystery. Stretching across 1,200 kilometers and rising a third of the height of Mount Everest are the Gamburtsev Mountains, except they are hidden underneath 2 to 4 kilometers of ice. They are named after Gregory A. Gamburtsev, a Soviet geophysicist who made the discovery in 1958. From what they can tell through radar technology, the mountains are over 1 billion years old. They've been able to map the mountains by abnormal gravity fluctuations, but by all scientific reasons they should have eroded by now, but they haven't. One hypothesis is that the erosion process simply paused once the ice got thick enough, but still we won't really know the answer until we can fully look at those mountains, and it might take 1 billion years for that ice to melt, so who knows. Number 7. Shackleton's lost ship. Ooh, love a good lost ship story. Ironically, Captain Shackleton's ship was named the Endurance and was supposed to be ideal for navigating the icy waters of Antarctica. But alas, Sir Ernest Shackleton along with his faithful crew were forced to abandon ship in 1915. The Endurance became trapped by massive boulders of ice and then began to sink beneath the Weddell Sea. The crew escaped though, which is good, traveling 720 nautical miles before they were able to reach shore and be rescued. Researchers in the UK were captivated by its loss and desperately desired to retrieve it, and they finally attempted it in 2019. They got a whole team together, but unfortunately the escapade was unsuccessful. The submarine they sent looking for it ended up trapped down there as well. They never saw it again and were not able to find the wreckage while they were at it. So whether or not the Endurance continues to endure beneath the waves of that unforgiving portion of the sea, we will never know. Or if they try again, who knows. Number 6. Edgar Evans. By all counts, Edgar Evans was a positive, cheerful member of Robert Falcon Scott's soon-to-be doomed expedition to the South Pole. So when Edgar started to act distant and his temperament started changing, his team knew something was wrong. Canadian Dr. R.C.F. Falk came to the conclusion that he died from accidental anthrax poisoning in 1986. Anthrax could have been trapped within the ice, and Evans' mental and physical health declined when he hit his head on the Beardmore Glacier. The doctor on the crew believed it was due to damage to his skull. Then as his symptoms changed, they thought it was scurvy, dehydration, or the high altitude causing the problems. But even before the Beardmore Glacier, his mood was changing, so it couldn't have been the fall or the ice. To this day, no one really knows how or why he died. He just didn't come back after lunch one day, and Scott recorded, "I was the first to reach the poor man and was shocked by his appearance. He was on his knees with his clothes disarrayed, hands covered and frostbitten, and a wild look in his eyes." Unquote. He later died and the site of his grave has never been found, so without an autopsy, we may never find out. Number 5. Rodney Marks. This is a case colder than any iceberg in the South Pole, and it will forever remain that way. Rodney Marks was an astrophysicist who worked at the South Pole at the Amundsen Scott Base in 2000. He suddenly fell really ill and passed away, so they put his body into storage until a coroner could review him. Turns out the cause of death was methanol poisoning. Methanol was used as a cleaning solution at the base, and somehow lethal amounts of it were found in his system. and accidental ingestion were overruled when syringe marks were found in his arm. The question of murder rose instead. Mark's colleagues quickly left when the spring came before a proper inquiry could be made, and New Zealand police were met with a wall of silence. With the same people living day in and day out, who knows how high tensions rose, but with tons of evidence thrown away and the findings never released, this is one case that will remain frozen in more ways than one. Number 4. Xavier Mertz. For over a century, many believed the survival of Douglas Mawson during the 1912 South Pole expedition was an open and shut case. It was a miraculous case of human resilience, but historian David Dogg believes that Mawson's loyalty to his dying friend wasn't what it appeared to be. Their other accomplice died earlier on in the adventure when he fell into a crevice along with the sled and all their supplies. Mertz and Mawson only had a few things. They tried to make it back on rations, but Mertz died on January 27th. But Day thinks that Mawson cut the rations, therefore making Mertz perish first. Even with what they had to eat the sled dogs, and Mawson recorded they killed the last dog on December 28th, but he still described cooking dog meat on January 10th, leading Day to believe that he may have eaten another corpse lying around. Yeah. Mertz's body has never been found, and may never be, especially if nothing is left. Not even time will be able to reveal what really happened, so I guess I'll stay with Mawson. Number 3, the anomaly. Who knows what is trapped beneath the billion-year-old ice that coats Antarctica? Mountains, disease, forests, who knows? But there's one thing that scientists can't quite unravel. Beneath Wilkes Land in Antarctica, there's an object 151 miles across and 2,700 feet deep that could change what we know of human history. Scientists believe that it may be from space. Perhaps the asteroid.
It's crazy that they put Stiltskin in there, like Rumpel Stiltskin, and he's the guy that got all like the items or whatever.
Gravitational changes in the area indicating an object of immense size. Is it an asteroid? Or is it something bigger? Something so huge that it may even answer the age-old question of what else is out there. Some conspiracies revolve around a spaceship that may have crashed here billions of years ago. Whatever the case, we may not be around when the ice finally decides to reveal it. So that sucks for us, I guess.
You're streaming? We have the designs to make your stream look awesome. Owned.tv is the largest streamer shop worldwide. We offer branding packages with everything you need. With our do-it-yourself tools, you can easily create designs and choose from millions of possibilities. Get started and set up your stream with our free setup guides right away. That sound good so far? It gets even better. Talk to our streaming experts until everything works with your new designs. We deliver high-quality products for different tools and platforms at an affordable price. Thousands of satisfied customers are using our products. Upgrade your stream now. TV.
Hey, do you want to start streaming? With Own Pro, you get access to hundreds of overlays and alerts. Install them with just one click. Use our plugin in your favorite language. Own Pro gives you all designs and tools to start your stream in seconds. Get started now and try Own Pro for free.
Number 2, the ship Jenny. Fact or fiction, the existence of the ship Jenny may be lost to history and continue to be dismissed as a myth. But here is the story so you can decide for yourself. The tale goes that Jenny became trapped in an ice barrier at the Drake Passage in 1823. It was allegedly discovered in 1840 by a whaling ship poetically called Hope, and the captain made a disturbing discovery. The ship looked as though it was still being manned, with 7 members of the crew standing to attention on the deck. But as they got closer, it was then they realized they were dead. The entire crew was preserved by the Antarctic cold. Even creepier was the logbook, which featured this entry. May 4th, 1823. No food for 71 days. I am the only one left alive. Unquote. The captain who wrote this was found sitting, still as death, in the chair. The tale has been romanticized in a novel called The Ghost Ship by John Conroy Hutchinson, so perhaps that's why people think it's just a story. But I guess we'll never know, will we? Number 1, Carl Robert Dish. Out of all the cases on this list, this one is definitely the most mysterious and will remain just that, a mystery. Carl worked for the National Bureau of Standards and was staying at Bird Station in 1965 just for the winter. Something he normally had to do was follow a hand line to the main station complex so he never got lost. But on May 8th, he went out on a trip he made over 25 times, only this time he didn't return. When he did not return to Bird Station, they went searching and did find a trail leading west. The weather was pretty bad and it was really dark, so the next day they decided to head out with vehicles. They found tracks again, heading south, but then they just disappeared. They noted that his steps seemed purposeful and that his stride didn't vary, like he was heading towards something. Searches continued for days and days, but no sign of Dirch was ever found. Number 10, Levadinsky's flight. The mystery of how Levadinsky's flight ended up lost in the first place isn't really a mystery. In 1937, a Soviet pilot named Sigismund was tasked with being the first pilot to fly a passenger plane over the North Pole. A project that should have taken a full year ended up being rushed into 3 months because they wanted to impress Stalin. Unsurprisingly, right from the start, the right engine was emitting smoke after it took off, which engineers said would stop. Well, it didn't. And 19 hours later, they attempted to make an emergency landing. But where the case gets interesting is that despite Russian, Canadian, and American rescue efforts combing the Arctic, there was not a trace of them to be found. The likeliest answer is that the plane sank into the icy depths, which they searched, but still nothing. A magnetic anomaly was detected at the bottom of a lake, but that was the only evidence ever found. They still didn't find the crash, so wherever they are, may they rest in peace. Number 9, the monster of Lake Liamna. The ocean is not the only place in the world we don't have all the answers to. Loch Ness has Nessie. Alaska has the monster of Lake Liamna. Reportings of a massive creature in the lake have been found from planes flying over it since the 1940s, as well as fishermen have seen some weird things. Traditionally, locals didn't fish in the lake because they thought it was dangerous because of this. There is some speculation that the creature they are seeing are white sturgeonfish, a breed of fish that used to be able to reach about 20 feet long, but nobody has ever found proof. So it could be a Greenland shark or the similar sleeper shark. Sturgeons are typically white and silvery, and many report the monster being black or dark in color. But evidence of neither shark breed have been found in the lake. So what is it? So the monster remains a mystery, sighting after sighting, without anyone getting a close enough look. Number 8, the disappearance of Henry Hudson. The Northwest Passage. Does anybody know that Stan Rogers song? It's a great song. The elusive pathway to the Orient that would lead whoever found it to treasures beyond imagination. It would just be a great trade route. While it currently exists today, many men died trying to find it or disappeared. Thus begins the mystery of Henry Hudson. Hudson was an English explorer who vanished in 1610 while he attempted to find this elusive pathway. Only rumors, theories, and some clues remain of him now. Hudson made several attempts at finding it, and at one time thought he succeeded when he sailed what is now known as the Hudson Strait. His ship, the Discovery, got stuck in the ice, and he promised the crew they'd sail back when it had thawed. But
yo, did you know that they came out with other Final Fantasy tactics?
His sons and some other members of the crew with warm clothes and some food, which is very nice, into a small boat.
Did you know that they came out with other Final Fantasy Chronicles?
Some say they ended up in Danby Bay. Some say they died on the island of Spitzenbergen, or that they
Yeah, bro, there's like 5 of them shits.
No one knows exactly what
I downloaded the emulator and I downloaded one of them.
Canadian archaeologist Patricia Sutherland led a dig in 2012 in the north of the Arctic Circle on Baffin Island. She and her team found whetstones containing traces of copper alloy, materials that were foreign to the Inuit but were used by Vikings. This dig was prompted by the discovery of 2
I'm not even call you back.
yarn Norse women made. This led Sutherland to believe that there was a strong Norse presence in the Arctic and would have been involved with trade. While it is a fact that Vikings actually lived on the East Coast for a while, the real mystery surrounds Sutherland. While undergoing her research, she was fired out of nowhere from her post at the Canadian Museum of History. She says it's because they didn't want to fund a project that didn't support British voyages, while the museum was like, no, you harassed people and you suck to work with. That's not cool. What is the truth? Probably the latter. There was an 18-month investigation by an independent third party that determined it as harassment, but still, who do we believe? Who do we believe? Number 6, the Eagle Flight. Equipped with chocolate cake.
You already light it. I know the lighter is, and we're not a match.
Silk and a whole lot of guts. Salomon August André attempted to reach the pole. He was a young Swedish engineer with big ideas for balloon technology in the 1870s. At that time, no expedition had ever succeeded in reaching the North Pole, and Salomon thought hydrogen balloons were the way to go. His balloon, the Ornen, the Eagle, was built in Paris with full financial backing from the Swedish king. By July 1897, André, Knut Franknol, and Nils Strindberg lifted off from Svalbard and were never seen alive again. The crew disappeared until 3 decades later. Geologists and sea hunters found the ruins of their camp. The skull of one of the travelers was entirely bleached white and, quote, lay there smiling dreadfully, unquote. According to the diary, the crew had to land 65 hours later and survived quite well for a while because they had chocolate cake, and that's great. But when they attempted to reach Franz Josef Island, they failed and were lost on their return. What exactly happened to them, we don't know. One of them might be attacked by a polar bear. There's just no way of knowing. They could have starved, probably. That might have happened. Let's move on.
We found Sprizzy through a Google search, pretty much. I was looking for a way to market our YouTube videos in a, I guess you'd call it a correct manner. Sprizzy's something completely different. What Sprizzy does is they have a network.
Number 5, Zeleny Yar. In 2014, a fantastic yet grim discovery was made in the Siberian Arctic. 34 shallow graves, 11 bodies shattered and crushed, plus 8 mummified bodies were shrouded in copper and wrapped in fur were found. All of them were buried pointing to the Gorny Poli River. With the extravagant burial process this community went to,
make sure to jump in the comments.
Who they were.
Who's gonna drop a follow?
They do believe that the mummification was an accident brought on by the non-oxidizing copper placed with the bodies. A year later, another set of remains were found in a birch bark cocoon, and inside was a small boy. So many questions swirl about this discovery, but as of yet, there is no clear answer. Research is ongoing though. Number 4, rain versus snow, aka rain snow? This mystery is boggling scientists, and if they don't solve it, it could have detrimental effects on Arctic wildlife as it already has. It's definitely one of the weirdest things to happen due to climate change. In the northern area, snow slowly turns into rain, but instead of melting snow, it seeps into the cracks underground. This snow/rainwater seeps through and forms a solid frozen layer of soil, like a thick shield which blocks the vegetation. This is a massive problem for animals like the muskox, as their food source is no longer available. It is due to this phenomenon that 20,000 of them starved to death in 2003 due to rain snow on Banks Island in Canada. They even tried to find food on floating ice but drifted away. I hope this issue gets solved, but based on the lack of change we are making towards hindering global warming, it may never be. Number 3, mysterious craters. So if you watch the ice melt in your drink, you can sometimes see little holes pop in through the top. So when I came across this so-called mysterious craters popping up in Siberia, I thought it was just melting ice. I'm no scientist, but with global warming, that makes sense. Since the 1960s, the largest one of these craters was discovered and retreats 15 meters every year. But it gets even stranger when on June 28, 2017, locals noticed flames and columns of smoke near the village of Sakaya. The same area craters were discovered. There are some pretty wild theories about what they are. Of course, some involve aliens. They say the holes are left by UFOs finally emerging from the ice, or that they're...
I haven't played this game in so long, bro. I miss playing this shit.
A more scientific explanation are the methane reserves trapped in the ice exploding. There's still more research to do. Number 2, Inventio Fortunata. The Inventio Fortunata was a travel log that helped many European explorers map the pole. Thing is, no one knows who wrote it. It was allegedly the description of a voyage by a Franciscan priest from Oxford, but it changed hands so many times no one is sure. In 1360 it was presented to the English crown, and then someone lost it. Then a Dutchman named Jacobus Canoyen included information from it, but then his travel book got lost. Luckily, his version was quoted, so we have some idea of what the Fortunata actually said about the pole, but we have no idea where the original might be. The influence of this mysterious document lasted all the way up to the 17th century, but it was a huge reason researchers were able to map it in the first place. But who wrote it and where did they go are 2 questions that remain. And last but not least, the Alaska Triangle. Just sliding into the Arctic Circle, we have the freezer burn version of the Bermuda Triangle, a massive expanse of icy terrain in Alaska where many have gone and few have returned. This 32,000 square mile area has claimed the lives of 16 to 20,000 people since the 1980s alone. From hikes to passenger plane crashes, no one who has disappeared in the Alaska Triangle has ever been recovered. The disappearance of majority leader Bill Boggs is the most famous case, as it launched one of the largest missions the U.S. has ever seen. In 1972, he and his plane vanished over the Alaska Triangle, and despite 39 days of searching, the use of 40 military aircrafts and 50 civilian planes, not a trace of him was ever found. No debris, evidence of collision, or remains, nothing. Even before Boggs in the 1950s, 44 passengers and the pilot disappeared, and in the 1990s, a Cessna 340 carrying 4 people also vanished. The Alaska Triangle could very well be the largest mass grave in the world, and who knows if any of the bodies will ever be found.
And we're kicking off this list with pyramids. So a couple years back, satellite images revealed a mysterious triangular formation in Antarctica's desolate landscape. When the images hit social media, debates and speculations about the origin of this quote-unquote pyramid began. The pyramid shape appeared in satellite images of the Ellsworth mountain range located in the southern reaches of Antarctica. It seemed to have a striking resemblance to the dimensions of Egypt's iconic Great Pyramid of Giza, measuring 2 kilometers in each direction from its square base. And as these images circulated on social media platforms, the conspiracy theories began to flow. Now, scientists attribute these formations to natural processes and optical illusions, but perhaps there's a deeper secret being hidden from us in the cold, inhospitable terrain of Antarctica. Was there some ancient civilization that used to call the South Pole home? Did a group of beings from somewhere beyond our planet construct it? I don't know. I'm just here to ask the important questions. And now I'm here to tell you that if you are liking our channel so far, if you're new here, why not hit that subscribe button? We have awesome videos coming at you on the daily, plenty to see. Don't miss out. Do that right now. Next up, we have the ANITA discovery. The Antarctic Impulsive Transient Antenna, or ANITA, is a sophisticated scientific tool in the form of a high-tech balloon.
Make sure you jump in the comments and make sure you drop a follow. Or Slender Man's gonna get you.
Neutrinos entering Earth's atmosphere
Little
of space. But a few years ago, ANITA made
Little
a
Mogul,
strange
nigga, what?
discovery. It detected neutrinos seemingly originating from beneath the Earth's surface. Quite the departure from its intended function of capturing spaceborne neutrinos. One of the more fun hypotheses behind this is that these detected particles may be signs of a possible parallel universe where the fundamental laws of our own universe might operate in complete.
I'm on year 1 right now.
This is really just speculative, but it's a.
I just started playing it again because I just realized that there was different spin-offs like the Crystal Bearers. So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna start from the first Crystal Chronicles and I'm just gonna go on.
Home to the McMurdo Station, a hub for scientific research. It also
Oh, I didn't mean to do that.
something much darker. It's rumored to be haunted. There was a tragic plane crash on the island in 1979, and this crash claimed the lives of 257 people. Over the years, visitors to Ross Island have reported unsettling occurrences describing ghostly footsteps echoing in the icy darkness and mysterious voices that seem to emanate from nowhere. Some claim to have come face to face with full-on apparitions, believing to be the restless spirits of the plane crash victims, wandering the frigid snow-covered landscape for eternity. The haunting stories surrounding Ross Island have continued to be passed down through generations of Antarctic explorers and researchers. Number 7, the UFO.
Don't tell me to hang in there, you ain't gonna do no work.
Navy SEAL
Oh, nigga.
revealed some intriguing
Got him.
information to an investigative journalist named Linda.
He's moving mighty slow with that dual casting.
He wished
Don't
to
heal.
as this information was highly
Let's go dual cast.
In August of 2003, this individual and his team had
Hey,
been tasked with a
oh,
highly classified objective under the guise of a research reconnaissance mission. They arrived at their destination where they found a large dark structure protruding from the ice.
Oh, it got me far.
Big square slabs cut into the structure that when you push on.
You ever played Crystal Chronicles before?
Into the building, opening up into this long.
Oh my god, that's crazy. That was close.
Green by an unknown source, and adorning the walls were strange hieroglyphics, but they didn't resemble any hieroglyphics seen here on Earth. This is a pretty outlandish story, impossible to prove, but hard to discredit completely because it's just hearsay, really, but it is fascinating. Plus, Antarctica is one of the most unpopulated places on Earth. It would be a good spot for little green men from space to operate without the presence of prying eyes. So let's stay on the topic of UFOs for a minute and discuss another possible UFO crash landing in Antarctica, this time spotted with satellite images. YouTube channel Secure Team 10 shared a video back in 2018 zooming close in on a small island just off the coast of Antarctica, which seemed to show a long, sharp mark in the snow as if something had crashed and then skidded along. Now, this island has the exact same environment as Antarctica. It seems to be a piece of it that broke off and floated away. So it's inhospitable, totally void of people. So what is this object? The narrator.
Oh, fuck, that's crazy.
Shaped, covered by mounds of snow. Whatever the object is, it's also very large, and the trail it left behind is almost 1,000 meters long.
Get the fuck out of here, man.
The object leads to a mountain, and there's debris that seems to have been pushed out at the base. It looks like as if the object flew down and crashed into the mountain before skidding along the ice where it now sits. Part of me thinks there could have been an avalanche or something on the mountain, and maybe this is just a piece of rock that slid out extra far. I don't know. What do you all think, though? At number 5, we have Scott's Hut. Back to the
Move! Oh, you son of a bitch. I knew it was gonna end up beating me.
Sir Robert Scott departed from this hut in Cape Evans on an expedition to the South Pole. An expedition they would never return from. The hut now stands just as it did all those years ago. There are belongings laying around, scientific equipment, even the frozen penguins the group had been studying remain on the outside of the hut. It's almost complete.
How did it still get me?
And as intriguing as it would be to give this place a visit, staff and visitors do claim to have an odd feeling when stepping inside it. There's a sadness about the place, an emptiness, a place that was so full of life, with daring explorers about to begin an epic journey, never to come back. Only maybe they did come back. It's no surprise that with an eerie history like that, some folks believe the hut to be haunted. Ghostly whispers, shadowy figures, a sense of not being alone. These are just some of the things guests have reported during their visits. Number 4, the giant hole. In 2017, researchers in Antarctica observed a massive polynya, a large area of open water within ice, suddenly appearing. It was already massive, but things got
Here you go, Kubo.
when the polynya expanded at an unprecedented rate, increasing in size by more than 8 times within just a few weeks. The discovery was made in Weddell Sea, an area known for its harsh freezing conditions. Polynjas are
Now,
It's the things we love most that destroy us.
Okay, so you can see they being cheated.
The Hunger Games, rated PG-13.
not uncommon in Antarctica, but their sudden and substantial growth is a more rare occurrence. That puzzled the researchers.
Okay, that's
These
fire.
gaps in the ice are usually maintained by complex processes, ocean currents,
See, like,
temperature variations.
I don't have any records or anything. I've just been. Final Fantasy was one of the first games that I've ever played. Final Fantasy 7 was.
Researchers and climate experts were left with a
Final
series of
Fantasy and
questions.
Pokemon, you know?
What was causing this rapid
And it was.
expansion? Was it related to climate change, natural variability, or some other unknown factor? And the scientific community set out to study this event. With the use of satellite imagery, ocean sensors,
I'm gonna get another
models,
command slot.
the prevailing
But yeah, I've been playing Final Fantasy
caused by intense
ever.
cyclones. All
over 20 years now.
Let's talk about all the military presence in Antarctica.
Oh, Double Axe, yeah, Double Axe is another good one.
Let's start by going all the way back to World War II. There have been rumors for decades that Mr. H himself, the
Oh, you
dictator
meant
of
the thing.
Germany, might have established a covert
Oh, why'd you do
base
that?
in Antarctica. As for what they were doing there are lots of rumors, but the SS
I can't wait to get to the second one though, cause like I've beaten this one already, but I just wanted to, you know, for nostalgic reasons, like fuck it, I'll just start over. But I can't wait to start on Crystal Bearers.
The frozen tundra. After the war in 1946 and 47, the U.S. sent a huge fleet to Antarctica, and many believe that they had been tasked with destroying this secret.
Yeah, me either. I swear I never even heard of it, man. I felt like an asshole when I seen it. I was like, damn, like how have I never heard of this game? I think I might go back and finish that out.
Conspiracies suggest everything from advanced
I'll do it on the
weapons
way
to
back.
secretive scientific experiments related
Oh, wait, I didn't mean to
climate
touch that.
change or extraterrestrial phenomena. Who knows? And number 2 is Deception Island. Deception Island, nestled in the icy expanse of Antarctica, holds a chilling history that goes beyond its freezing temperatures. Once a bustling whaler's station, remnants of this grim past still linger in the form of whale bones strewn across some of its
I think I
beaches.
switched it already. I changed it to water.
Relentlessly hunted these beautiful creatures. When
No, I think it's water, it just said, right?
prices plummet,
Yeah, I changed it to water already. But no, I haven't.
repurposed later as a British
Damn, I thought I changed it to water.
Today, visitors to Whalers Bay, a landing site on this island, have shared
That was one of the last ones that was there.
reported witnessing eerie apparitions.
That's crazy. I seen it too. Yeah, for me too.
Claimed to hear disembodied voices echoing across the ice. In 2009, when the crew of the American TV show Destination Truth ventured to the bay, they captured unexplained bangs and the unsettling sight of a shadowy figure roaming among the decaying ruins. The crew even captured a thermal
Oh, much
signature
appreciation, man. You know, stop by anytime, you know.
emanating from one of the abandoned shacks. But finally, we have the theory that Atlantis could have been located deep beneath the ice of Antarctica. According to Plato, Atlantis was this
And here we go.
advanced civilization.
Through the miasma. That's what we're all about to start facing now in real life. Watch, we're gonna start seeing all type of miasma shit going on, all type of creatures just flowing from it.
Down south, but here's the twist. Antarctica wasn't always an icy wasteland. Millions of years ago, it had forests and a much milder climate. So some folks propose that Atlantis could have existed in Antarctica
Leave
before
my
it
son alone there.
froze
Trying to get
over,
chewing
or some
something. You
other
shouldn't be
ancient
chewing.
civilization. They
Go
point to
later.
satellite images showing peculiar shapes under the ice, speculating that these could be remnants of the lost city.
Tipa Peninsula.
Pyramid earlier, that could have something to do with it. Scientists, though, of course, remain skeptical. They've been studying Antarctica for years, haven't found any
The Mushroom
concrete
Forest.
evidence to
Sounds like a
support this
delightful
idea,
place.
but it's fun to think about. Could that pyramid shape, again, possibly play into this? Who knows?
Starting off this countdown, we have the UFOs. There are tons of urban legends surrounding Antarctica. In particular, it's thought that aliens once lived there after crashing into one of the
Defeat
mountains.
enemies
From
with
there, it's believed that they
spells
had
to
their
get
own
bonus.
secret base there. While in 2019, UFO hunter Scott Waring was on Google Maps looking at Antarctica from above when he spotted what he thought to
That
be
up,
a
Kupo.
UFO trapped
Kupo.
under Antarctica's ice. According to Scott, he was looking over an island in Antarctica when he saw the craft. He said it was triangular in shape, has a hump in the middle, and it has a thicker edge. He believes that with global warming melting more and more of Antarctica, that the craft, which was once lodged in the ice, is slowly starting to reveal itself. But of course, no one has actually gone out to that spot to investigate what it might be. So it could just be ice, or it could be a real alien spacecraft. Now, I'm just a little concerned when that thing fully thaws. Like, I don't need no aliens coming back to life. No, thank you. In our 9th spot, we have the Loch Ness Monster. And if you guys are liking this video so far, then make sure to give it a big thumbs up, because you know what? It really helps us out. A couple of years ago, another man was on Google Maps when he saw what looked to be a big monster lurking in the water. It was this massive dark mass that had a lot of people terrified. But later it was debunked, saying that it was just a bunch of rocks. But did you know that a real-life Loch Ness Monster did once roam Antarctica? Yeah, over the course of a number of expeditions, scientists have discovered fossilized remains of a massive creature. And they say it's unlike anything they have ever seen. These remains are over 70 million years old and are from a creature that would have weighed about 15 tons. Not only that, but this thing was massive. It was 36 feet long. Now, it's considered to be part of the Elasmosaurid family. But this thing is the largest of its kind ever found. In our 8th spot, we have the Blood Falls. Now, if you're visiting Antarctica, this for sure would give you a heart attack. So they have something they refer to as the Blood Falls. There's a place where it literally looks like it's gushing out blood. It's like when the elevator doors open in The Shining and then like all that blood just gushed out. Yeah, that's what it looks like. So this was discovered back in 1911 by an Australian geologist. But don't worry, it's not actually blood. At first, it was thought that it was a result of microscopic red algae. But in 2003, it was actually discovered that the color was a result of oxidized iron. Nonetheless, it looks very creepy. In fact, I've seen this image circling around the web before, and people are using it as a PSA of like, all the animals that have died in the Arctic, and that's their blood. Clearly, it's false, but again, a very creepy image. Moving on to number 7, we have the creatures. Antarctica is home to a number of very creepy looking creatures. It was previously thought that because of its harsh conditions, nothing could survive there. But scientists have discovered a number of weird species that have adapted to survive in the environment. First off, let's talk about the sea spider. Now, Antarctica isn't the only place that has these creatures. But actually, the sea spiders in Antarctica are massive. In Europe, these spiders are about the size of your fingernail. In Antarctica, they're the size of a large dinner plate. Now, technically, they aren't actually spiders, even though they have 8 legs. They belong to a class of species called pycnogonids instead of arachnids. Seriously, these creatures are terrifying looking. It's like a mixture of a crab and a spider. And those legs are super long. What's super weird about them is that they pump blood with their guts. This is the first time that this kind of circulatory system has been seen in nature. And they breathe through their skin, which actually allows more oxygen to be absorbed into their bodies, which allows them in turn to grow bigger over time. How great. Coming in at number 6, we have the plane crash. In the 1970s, Antarctica, for some reason, was the place to travel to. Tons of tourists from New Zealand were booking day trips to Antarctica. However, one of these trips ended very badly. Due to low visibility, the plane crashed at the side of Mount Erebus. To this day, remnants of the crash are still there on the mountain. As for the passengers on board, well, their bodies were removed and stored at an American base on Ross Island. Many visitors to this day believe that this site is haunted by the ghosts of the passengers who died in the crash. People have heard eerie voices, felt ghostly presences, and have discovered unexplained footprints. One of the workers at the station experienced this all himself and is convinced it's haunted. So yeah, there's ghosts in Antarctica. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the ghost towns. Believe it or not, but Antarctica is filled with ghost towns. This is from humans trying to live there, but ultimately finding the weather conditions to be way too harsh, and then they end up just leaving. And they leave everything behind. As a result, there are tons of abandoned buildings and structures all over Antarctica, from military bases to research stations to huts. You get the picture. Back in the early 2000s, however, a team of scientists went to Antarctica and found something very disturbing. While exploring some of the abandoned buildings, they found several frozen bodies. Most likely, these people weren't properly equipped for the cold. But still, that must have been a horrifying find. In our 4th spot, we have the bristleworm. Okay, if you thought the sea spiders were bad, wait until you hear about this bad boy. This is something straight out of your nightmares. Basically, it's a worm-type creature with bristles, hence the name bristleworm. Its nasty-looking bristles help it crawl along the ocean floor and swim, and also to protect itself. This creature also has pretty sharp teeth, and it's a carnivore. So, you know, there's that. Oh, and it extends its jaws to catch its prey. It gets worse. This thing is huge. It can grow to more than 20 centimeters long and 10 centimeters wide. No, thank you. No, that's just no. And the part of the creature that looks like it would be its head, no, that's its throat. I know, I'm grossed out too. And at number 3, we have the penguin mummies. I mean, like, ancient Egypt mummies, not like the penguin's mom. So in 2016, a group of scientists discovered hundreds of mummified penguins in Antarctica. Since Antarctica has little precipitation and is dry and cold, it can mummify animals much like a desert would. In fact, it's still considered a desert even though it's cold. Well, anyway, scientists found a large amount of mummified penguins, many of which were just chicks. Some of the birds were from 200 years ago, others were from 750 years ago, all still perfectly preserved. It's thought that these birds died because of global warming. The weather drastically changed on these animals and it caused them to slowly die. Nonetheless, it must have been pretty creepy to arrive there only to find a graveyard of mummies. In our second spot, we have the monument. In 2009, a bunch of scientists in Antarctica discovered something rather strange. It was a monument with a bust of Vladimir Lenin on top, the former premier of the Soviet Union. After digging around the half-buried monument, they discovered an old Soviet Union military base, which by then was covered completely in snow. Had it not been for the monument sticking out, they probably would have never found it. Here's where it gets strange. After they
You go on a tour with Grainer, maybe get $1 million deal.
Which was still
Mhm.
a chance at the life I want. It's our time.
unearthed this monument, the men began to become haunted by Lenin's ghost. And other explorers have claimed to have seen a ghostly apparition in that area, and they claim it looks exactly like him. Freaky, I know. Sometimes what's buried is sometimes better left buried. And in our number one spot, we have the ghost ship. Back in 1823, a boat named the Jenny left port on an exploration. However, along the way, something went wrong, and it seems like the men aboard starved and then froze to death. The boat then got trapped in the ice in Antarctica. Several years later, a crew passing by noticed the ship and decided to climb aboard to see what's up. There they found the entire crew frozen to death, perfectly preserved. One of the last journal entries from the captain read, May 4th, 1823. No food for 71 days. I am the only one left alive.
Number 10, hidden lakes. So it took working at a champagne restaurant to find out that salt water doesn't freeze. Well, it does, but at very, very low temperatures. We used to use it to hyper-chill wine that was in storage because salty water can get colder than 0 degrees Celsius without freezing. The saltier the water, the colder it gets because salt lowers the freezing point because it interferes with the water molecule's ability to form crystals, which is at least one reason why Deep Lake in Antarctica has stayed liquid for millions of years. It sits 55 meters below the sea level, and the salinity of the water increases as it gets deeper. Despite temperatures reaching minus 20 degrees Celsius, the lake remains in a liquid state, though entirely uninhabitable, or so they thought. Scientists have covered at least 4 microbe species living in the water, but that's about the only thing that can. Because the water can reach much colder temperatures than the sea, even penguins wouldn't survive for long. They have been caught swimming in it, but it would feel to them what it feels like for us jumping into an icy lake for a polar dip. You know, if they stay too long, it would probably kill them. How the lake formed exactly still has scientists baffled, but they're probably, but let's be honest, they'll probably figure it out. Number 9, rainforests? Press rewind on the world for long enough and you would arrive in a world of opposites, which includes Antarctica being closer to a rainforest than an icy tundra. Scientists gather that before Antarctica was an expanse of ice, the region may have been host to lush forests, diverse wildlife, and even early human civilizations. But why do they think that? Scientists began discovering fossilized wood, leaf impressions, and signs of tropical trees. On top of that, they have found tons of fossils of marine animals, dinosaurs, and birds from the Cretaceous period, so you can see how they deduced the existence of some kind of forest-like area. Scientists are now looking to Antarctica for clues about evolution that we may have missed. So far, they've discovered a 50-million-year-old sperm cell on the egg case of a long-extinct worm species, which is extraordinary if you think about it. Man, like, talk about resilience, buddy. Number 8, mountains. Imagine the ice melts away, and beneath those massive, vast sheets of ice is an entire mountain range. Well, guess what? You don't have to imagine it, it's real. Hiding out beneath a 2 to 4 kilometer thick sheet of ice are what's called the Gamburtsev Mountains. They stretch across 1,200 kilometers and rise about a third of the height of Mount Everest. But how did an entire mountain range that high get covered in a sheet of ice? When Soviet geophysicist Grigory A. Gamburtsev made the discovery in 1958, he had the same question. Though he hasn't actually seen the mountains covered by ice, remember? But was able to figure out that they were there by measuring the abnormal gravity fluctuations in the area. They have since used radars to interpret the physical attributes of the mountains, but how did they end up that far beneath the ice? The mountains are around 1 billion years old, and scientists figure they should have eroded away by now. But the most popular theory as to why they are still there is that the erosion process just paused as soon as the ice sheet got large enough. To picture how immense this is, just imagine that the Rocky Mountains are covered by a sheet of ice. Astounding. Number 7, dangerous bacteria. Have you ever heard of Pandora's box? Well, it may
Oh
surprise you to learn
shit,
that
I wasn't
Antarctica
paying
might very well
attention.
just be that. Scientists have discovered microbes beneath Antarctic ice that could threaten life on planet Earth. Maybe. Ice is an excellent preservation method, and the 420,000-year-old microbes may only need to melt in order to come back to life. Now, it is equally likely that these microbes could be entirely harmless, but there is a chance that they won't be. But the fact that it could be so dangerous has scientists keeping tabs on them as closely as possible. Still, it sounds like a Stephen King apocalyptic horror film waiting to happen, so who the heck knows? We didn't see the past 2 years happening, did we? Number 6, blood falls. Blood falls. Get your mind out of the gutter. Sounds pretty terrifying, as it would have been for the person who first discovered it. In the McMurdo Dry Valley, there's a bright crimson river that cuts between Taylor Glacier and Lake Bonny. It looks like someone went to town on their dinner and just let the bodies drain into the water, but thank goodness there is a scientific explanation. Beneath the glacier, there's a very briny lake that was cut off from the atmosphere and is 3 times as salty as seawater, meaning, as we know now, that it can't really freeze, but it can, I guess, at a very low level. At first, it was suspected that a kind of red algae had infiltrated the glacier, causing the vibrant red hue, but in actuality, the briny lake is incredibly high in iron, and since it was cut off from oxygen for millions of years, the red color is a product of the reaction the water has to the oxygen and the sunlight from the atmosphere. The iron in the water oxidizes and rusts, like your car, which brings out the vibrant red illusion that is Blood Falls. Number 5, ancient meteorites. You may think meteorites and asteroids are dangerous, but something far less obvious may cause more damage than a doom rock. 430,000 years ago, smack dab in the middle of the Pleistocene epoch, a massive space rock the size of a soccer field crashed through Earth's atmosphere, but instead of smashing into the Earth, an airburst happened. Just before it slammed into the ice, it burst into pieces, exploding in the sky, and launched a superheated jet of gas. The explosion caused massive amounts of damage, scattering pieces of itself everywhere, which is how scientists were able to deduce that this happened. They found pieces of the asteroid across the ice and used chemical clues to link the particles together. They were also able to determine that the force of the blast was about, get ready, 1,000 times stronger than the nuclear blast at Hiroshima, and that destroyed an entire city, so... And some. So imagine what would have happened if that happened today. Number 4, oil-guzzling fungi. So we mentioned that there might be a world-ending microbes beneath the ice, but there also could be something that saves it. A unique kind of fungi has been found beneath the ice, gorging on petroleum. What on earth could that possibly be used for, you ask? Well, if these fun little guys love eating oil so much, then imagine how happy they'd be to dive into, let's say, an oil spill. They were first encountered when scientists came upon fuel containers left by explorers and immediately began studying them. Fungi don't usually just flourish at parties, they flourish in warm wooded regions, but perhaps the fungus that used to thrive in the rainforests we mentioned, they evolved to thrive in the icy barren conditions as well. So cool. We could learn so much about evolution that way. Number 3, top 3. Singing ice. Yup, the ice is singing. After scientists installed seismic sensors in the ice to measure its behavior, they discovered a mysterious song. Well, more like a massive ice drum. And it sounds like this. pitch changes based on the weather, though you wouldn't be able to hear it should you just stand on it. It's not audible to the human ear. But the humming occurs on the 500,000 square kilometer on the Ross Ice Shelf, about the size of France. The winds blowing across the snow dunes is what causes the humming, and scientists figure that this could be an even better way to keep tabs on how the ice is doing in relation to global warming. The ice is thinning due to global warming, and the song is almost a gift, an easier way to track the stability and vulnerability of the ice shelf. Sounds like nature is working with us to save itself. Number 2, cosmic particles. A mystery capable of breaking physics. If that were possible, it would be found in Antarctica. Since March 2016, researchers have been furrowing their brows over 2 distinct events that shouldn't have happened. Physicists caught cosmic rays that burst out from the Earth, not from space. The rays were detected by ANITA, NASA's Antarctic Impulsive Transient Antenna, a balloon-borne antenna. The balloon is designed to find cosmic rays from outer space, and caused a lot of excitement when it caught them coming up from the Earth instead. The discovery even implied theories that could support parallel universes. What boggled scientists about this discovery is that 2 particles seem to be cosmic rays that blasted through the planet and back out the other side. They shouldn't be able to do that. They now suspect that they may be particles that defy the standard model of how particles are supposed to behave, and maybe they're a new type of particle altogether. This is obviously a very simplistic explanation. It gets a lot more complicated and there's still more information out there, but still, really, really cool.
There's nothing more powerful than you, making your thing happen, really going for it, doing business on your terms, giving it your all, making a difference, and loving what you do. Every single day, feeling fearless, fulfilled, free. When there's nothing holding you back, what would your thing be?
And last but not least, a hidden German base. There are several versions of this story, some even going so far as theorizing that World War II mustache man escaped there and didn't die in his bunker. Some theories even say that German intelligence encountered aliens and developed new weapons with their tech. But the one truth is that there was indeed a secret World War II German base in Antarctica. Apparently, there was an expedition to establish a base as a whaling station in order to increase Germany's production of fat, which could be used for soap and mayonnaise and butter. The expedition was led by Alfred Richter, and other theories suggest Adolf himself sent the expeditions to research ways Germany could become a self-supporting country. Perhaps the reason was that innocent, but with the base having been abandoned 70 years ago, we will never know. Starting us off at number 10, we have Deception Island. In 1906, a Norwegian-Chilean whaling company started using Whalers Bay as a base for their factory ship. Other operations followed closely behind them, and then the next thing you know, a boomtown was born. But then, by just 1931, after a sweeping decline in the market for whale oil due to the Great Depression, the island was abandoned. Since then, it has quite literally become a ghost town, with visitors reporting seeing strange orbs of light coming from the abandoned huts, seeing apparitions of people walking around, and even hearing disembodied voices. So while the South Pole remains a harsh land with no official permanent population, it seems that ghosts who are unaffected by what makes the South Pole so difficult to endure have settled in and haunt all those who try to enter their domain. Next up at number 9, Wordie Hut. Although it's named after James Wordie, who was the chief scientist for Sir Edmund Shackleton's endurance expedition in 1914, the Wordie Hut was built much later in 1947. For years, it had been rumored to be haunted by terrifying spirits, and after several reports, a group of paranormal researchers from Destination Truth decided to see for themselves and spend a night in the hut. When they arrived, they were immediately taken back by the energy of the cabin. They knew that something was there. That night, members of the team heard frantic flipping of light switches and slamming doors from rooms where no one was staying. Jars began falling off the shelves all on their own, and after their one-night stay, they left completely creeped out. Now, I always think a telling tale of if some place is truly scary is when paranormal investigators, people whose job is literally to investigate creepy stuff, get scared and don't want to come back. Well, even so, visitors have checked it out since, but all reported similar events that chilled them to the bone and have never returned. Next up at number 8, the ghost ship of Jenny. Thought to have been abandoned in port in 1823, this ship was thought to be lost forever. That was until a whaling ship made a horrifying discovery a few years later, back in 1840. As the legend goes, Jenny had gotten stuck in the ice while on its expedition, and no one knew where it had ended up or what had happened to the crew aboard. That was until the whaling ship discovered them, and believing it to be the legendary Jenny, decided to go on board to check out what might still be on it. When they made their way onto the ship, they were horrified to find all the bodies frozen solid and perfectly preserved by the ice. Allegedly, the crew found a note they believed to be written by the captain that read, May 4th, 1823. No food for 71 days. I am the only one left alive. While some believe it's just folklore, others swear by the tale, claiming all the sailors of Jenny haunt the boat to this day. Coming in at number 7, Mountains of Madness. While Antarctica may be one of the most haunted places in the world, it is also home to some breathtaking scenery. But the Mountains of Madness kind of fall into the first category. Officially called the Gamburtsev mountain range, they are roughly the size of the Alps, but there is one catch. No one has ever seen them. But how could that be, I am sure you are wondering? Well, back in the 1950s, a group of Russian explorers discovered there were strange gravity fluctuations coming from below the ice. After a bit of sleuthing, they discovered the fluctuations to be from an entire subglacial mountain range hidden below 3 miles of ice. First of all, the fact that there is 3-mile deep ice is enough of a reason for me to never want to go there, but I digress. Scientists have compared it to studying another planet, which to some might be exciting, but to others they feel it's terrifying. No one knows what kind of life could be under there, what could have been preserved there for the last 250 million years. And some have even said they've felt a strange presence when they are near. Coming in at number 6, Shackleton's Hut. Antarctica is mainly a destination visited by scientists and explorers, but considering many of the early explorers died while on these trips, it also makes a lot of sense as to why they are all haunted. And one man who claimed to be a non-believer of ghosts would return from his trip thinking much differently. His name was Sir Edmund Hillary, and he was a New Zealand mountaineer and explorer who in 1953, along with his Sherpa, was the first known person to reach the summit of Mount Everest. So after conquering the mountain, he was looking for another adventure and sought out the South Pole 5 years later. When he arrived, he stayed in Sir Ernest Shackleton's abandoned hut from his famous endurance expedition. And when he was there, he claims to have seen Shackleton's ghost walk towards him and welcome him to the hut before vanishing right in front of his eyes. Ever since, it's been known as a paranormal hotspot, and many who visit leave terrified by what they see. Next up at number 5, Scott's Hut. During the early 1900s, there was a huge race to be the first country to reach the South Pole. Then in 1911, explorer Robert Falcon Scott and his team set out on a mission against Norway, later called the Terra Nova expedition, to do just that. While many explorers, Scott included, had explored Antarctica, none had managed to reach the pole. And so the race was on. A hut was pre-constructed in Britain that was brought over as a base camp for the crew, and they set up near the Great Ice Barrier. Eventually, it was decided some of the men would stay behind with supplies and shelter, and the rest of the team would venture out further. But sadly, their mission was ultimately a bust, as by the time they reached the pole, the Norwegian flag had already been planted. So the men turned around to head back, but sadly, due to frostbite, starvation, and disease, the men died off one by one and never made their return. Those that have visited the hut today claim to hear strange voices and footsteps all around the cabin. Apparently, the minute you walk in, you feel as though you're being watched, and some even swear they've seen the ghosts of Scott and his men lurk inside.
Next up at number 4, Ross Island. Home to one of the most recognized research stations across the continent, it's also the site of a devastating plane crash that left the island drowning in lost spirits. Back in 1977, New Zealand began operating sightseeing trips via plane over Antarctica. But in 1979, a true disaster would strike. Though exactly what happened is unknown, somehow the computer directing the flight got rerouted, and instead of taking its usual trip, it ended up flying dangerously close to a nearby mountain. All of a sudden, in the blink of an eye, the plane crashed, instantly killing all 257 passengers and crew members on board. Today, those that visit the island claim to hear unsettling voices in the darkness, as well as strange, ghostly footsteps. Some say they have even seen what they believe to be the flight victims wandering around the frigid landscape, eerily moaning and crying at night. So while there may be some beautiful places to visit, you might want to steer clear of this haunted island altogether. Coming in at number 3, a Soviet military base. Back in 2009, scientists passing through the icy scape came across a strange and concerning discovery. While exploring what's called the Pole of Inaccessibility, which is the point furthest from the sea in Antarctica, the group found a random monument with a bust of Vladimir Lenin perched on top. Now, if you don't know who that is or why that's a little bit creepy, let me explain. Vladimir Lenin was the founder of the Soviet Union and first head of government under the new regime. It was under his ruling that Russia became a one-party communist state. So upon discovering his lone bust in the middle of nowhere, the scientists decided it might be a good idea to keep exploring. After some digging, they happened upon an old Soviet military base that was covered by mountains of snow, and they realized that the bust was facing the direction of Moscow. Now, no one knows how long the bust has been there, and even creepier, no one knows why it's there. But many suspect that it might be the place where Lenin was buried back in 1924, and it's thought that his ghost may still haunt the area to this day.
With the Wells Fargo Active Cash credit card, earn unlimited 2% cash back on purchases you want, like dance lessons. And on what you need, like memory foam inserts. That's real life ready. Visit wellsfargo.com/activecash. Terms apply.
Coming in at number 2, Mount Erebus. Mount Erebus is the southernmost volcano on Earth, and it's still very much active. Some like to refer to it as the place where fire meets ice, as while inside the mountain it's swirling with molten hot magma. The outside remains frozen solid and is surrounded by ice caves. And while that might sound super cool, it is also the site of the infamous Ross Island plane crash that I already spoke about, and so it's littered with ghosts seeking revenge for having their lives taken too soon. And while many of the spirits are known to roam around the entire island, frightening visitors at every chance, some of the spirits are stuck in the place that took their lives. Some say that if you walk past the mountain, you can still hear the screams of the victims who lost their lives to the crash. And last up, in our number 1 spot, we have the Drake Passage. The Drake Passage may just be the most well-known part of all of Antarctica, but probably not for a good reason. Widely considered the most powerful convergence of seas, the Drake Passage is the point where the Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean converge with the southern seas, and it is notorious for its treacherous waters. It's a great feat for anyone to even dare to cross it, and it's estimated over the years that more than 1,000 people have died attempting to pass through its terrifying and turbulent waves. Many believe that all who have lost their lives to the passage remain, haunting the waters to warn those that attempt the feat to turn back. Or maybe they're trying to bring you into their realm with them. Either way, it's best to stay far, far, far away, because even if the ghosts don't get you, the waves almost certainly will.
and then very suddenly, a boy. Immediately, he knew it was the devil, but fearing his wrath, concealed his distress and crafted the chalice. Subtly though, he put his blacksmith tongs in the fire, and quick as he could, he thrust the tongs onto Satan's nose and cast him from the cell. That wouldn't be the last time he saw the devil though. Dunstan would face him once again and attack the devil by hammering into his hoof, and only agreed to remove it if the devil agreed never to cross a threshold where a horseshoe hung. And that's why today horseshoes are considered good luck, so take a lesson from that. Number 5, a boy named Scott. An article written by Richard J. Bonifant recounts several near-death experiences in order to try and see similarities. Some usually describe a light or a tunnel, but after a little boy named Scott got into an accident, he may have met something much darker. On June 10th, 1995, Scott and his family were enjoying getting ice cream from the ice cream truck, as you do, but Scott was so excited he ran out from behind the truck and he got hit by another motorist. He was almost declared dead, but 8 hours later, thankfully, he awoke in intensive care. The weirdest part was that he described in perfect detail what had happened to him as if he was watching from across the street. He knew every single detail. It was really freaky. Even recalled trying to give his dad a hug, but passing right through him. The scariest thing though was who he ended up meeting. He suddenly faced a dark vortex and felt himself being drawn into it by the haunting, putrid image of the devil. Scott said he looked like a man made of rotting flesh, and he tried to grab Scott, but he was whisked away into a tunnel of light. So it was kind of like the devil's trying to steal him from God. I'm glad things ended well for the little boy, getting to be with his family again, but still, not something anyone wants to see in the afterlife. Number 4, Dr. Paul Thigpen.
All of a sudden, I felt as if the darkness had filled my whole body, and that there was maybe a little part of it that was still me.
That was a clip of an interview with Dr. Paul Thigpen, who despite being raised under a Christian household, became an atheist before he was even 12 years old. That is until one day he was hanging with his friends when he was around 17 by the water in the front seat of a car. All 3 of them were squished in, and a palpable darkness began pressing into the top of his head, all the way to the bottom of his toes. He said it took over the majority of his body, and though he'd become an atheist, he didn't drink or do drugs, so we know this isn't a psychedelic experience, but his body suddenly felt like a kind of superhuman strength taking over him. A voice in his head whispered, "I'm throwing you into the water." To this day, Dr. Paul can't swim, and his body started moving across his friend's seat to leave the car. He knew he was going to die. Then he heard another voice that said, "Focus on the cross." He suddenly remembered the cross his girlfriend gave him, so he grabbed it, and meanwhile his friends were like freaking out. After holding the cross for a while, he said the darkness subsided, and when he told his friend what had happened, he said, "That's strange. The same thing happened to my girlfriend." He sought counsel from another friend who without a doubt said that he'd been visited by the devil. Later he discovered that his girlfriend's friend was a witch, and that kind of pointed all the arrows in that direction, so who knows. Was it a demon or in fact the devil? Either way, something changed his mind. Watch the rest of the interview and decide for yourself. Number 3, the man with the glowing eyes. Reddit user Dabby_U_69 had an experience as a kid that I don't think anyone could be the same after. They grew up in a pagan household, which apparently meant you saw a lot of weird stuff. But one day, on a Tuesday in the afternoon, she was playing with the daughter of a family friend who they called Jay, just outside as you do. So they're just playing, and then all of a sudden, Jay just stops dead in her tracks and points behind her. She froze and then turned around slowly to see, and I quote, "a tall shadow man about 6-7 feet tall in a trench coat and hat. The scariest thing about him was his eyes. Oh God, his eyes. Huge, red, and glowing circles, but its actual eyes were small, bloodshot, and his pupils were tiny. The man reportedly tried to strangle them, but they bolted too quick for the house. Once they told their moms, they in turn freaked out because apparently at the same time the man appeared, the TV had turned long static. They brought in a psychic who said, 'My love, the devil is here and he wants to hurt you. He was sent by someone, but we don't know who.' The woman then gave a crystal bottle filled with sage and lavender along with something else to ward him off, and apparently the bottle is running out. So I hope she's okay." Number 2, Father Gabriel Amorth. Father Gabriel Amorth was the official exorcist for the Diocese of Rome and claimed to have performed 60,000 exorcisms before he died in 2016. But one day in 1997, he encountered a spirit he never thought he'd see. A slim young peasant man was escorted to a small room where Father Amorth waited him. Immediately, he knew something was wrong. He requested the help of Jesus, and as soon as he did, the man began to spit and curse in English, which wasn't a language the man was known to speak. But then, the man was seething with anger and drool dripped from his mouth as he stared down the father. He tried to attack him, but the exorcist held him back with prayers. demanding the demon reveal its name. He called out, "Unclean spirit, whoever you are, and all your companions who possess this servant of God, I command you, tell me your name, the day and the hour of your damnation." The man snarled, and what came out next paralyzed him. Dripping evil, the man said, "I am Lucifer." He continued fighting the devil with prayer, and the windows formed ice crystals as he did so. The man also bent backwards for 25 minutes, howling at him, then began hovering at 3 feet in the air. Was it him? We don't know.
Twinings, drinking life.
No, we just don't know, but it certainly sounds like it. Number 1, last but not least, we kind of have to talk about this because I think a bunch of people saw the devil here. Castle Huska is one of the creepiest places in the world, as it was specifically built to keep the devil inside. Legend says that the castle was built over a gateway to hell. From afar, it looks like a typical old castle until you get closer. The castle wasn't built to be lived in, as evident by the fake windows and doors. Though there's a way inside, people don't recommend you step foot in there. In 878 AD, winged beasts and half-human creatures spilled from the gateway and terrorized the people in the village. Somehow they held them off long enough to build the place, but they were still curious. When construction first began, prisoners in the village would be offered a pardon if they agreed to be lowered by rope into the hole. The first man to attempt it is said to have met the devil himself while he was down there. He was tied up and slowly lowered. After a few moments in the darkness, the man began screaming and begged to be pulled up. By the time they hauled him up, he looked as though he aged 30 years. His hair was white, his skin creased and speckled. They tried to discover what he had seen, but the man was incoherent and was later put into an insane asylum before dying 2 days later.
Coming in at number 10, we have Truck On. In May 2018, a fire chief in East Jordan claimed that a security camera took this image of an angel flying over his truck. Glenn Thorman said that CCTV caught an angel flying over his vehicle and then disappeared out of frame. He said, "That's an angel," and I was just blown away. The Jordan River's Facebook page shared the image and said, "These photos have not been altered in any way." The second photo, the security camera also shot because the angel was moving away. The camera is designed to photograph anything in motion or unusual. Lots of tears today when they opened the security on their camera. Wow. Some skeptics are saying it's a moth nearer to the camera and that the picture lacks depth perception, but others are straight up convinced it's an angel.
In our number 9 spot, we have the Stargazer. A young man by the name of Harry lived in the country on a farm and was fascinated by the stars. He was given a telescope for Christmas one year, and he would look up at the stars and study them every night. One night, he spotted something in the sky like nothing he had ever seen before. It was a triangle, metal-looking object flying in the sky. He thought that it had to be a UFO. He ran inside to call his friend and tell him about it, and after he got off the telephone, he heard a knock on his door. He opened it to see 3 men dressed in black from head to toe. There was something a bit weird about them, though. They all kind of looked alike, and their noses were almost non-existent. Before Harry could speak, they were telling him to forget what he had seen and never speak of it again. They also subtly threatened his family and his future if he spoke about it. Terrified, he vowed not to. He eventually decided to share his story online because technically he wouldn't be speaking about it. Upon years of reflection, Harry believes that he met some kind of alien.
Coming into number 8, we have Angels in Mecca. A YouTube video was uploaded to the video sharing site in August 2010. Now, it was said to have been shot in Mecca in 2008. Mecca, of course, is a holy desert valley in Saudi Arabia, sacred to those of the Islamic faith. So this video is pretty blurry, but such was life in 2008. I have to admit, something strange is happening here. Perhaps it's an angel visiting one of the holiest spots on Earth, or maybe it's a lens flare. You decide. Coming into number 7, we have Dark Angel or Dementor. Some people in Kitwe in Zambia were convinced that they had seen a dark angel, or an angel of death perhaps, looking over the Mkuba Mall. The dark humanoid figure appeared in the clouds with seemingly no explanation. The apparition was 100 meters long and very much looked like a Harry Potter Dementor. Dementors, of course, administer kisses of death and suck out souls, so not great. People had mixed reactions to the figure in the clouds. Some people thought it was an angel of some kind or some kind of embodiment of God, so they started worshipping it. Others were terrified and they ran away in fear. Apparently, the mystery cloud hung around for around half an hour and then it disappeared. How strange. Coming into number 6, we have a guardian angel. A lot of people talk about guardian angels, benevolent forces that watch over them and protect them from harm. This is a lovely idea, but is there any proof that such a thing exists? Well, this CCTV footage from a road in China seems to offer a shred of proof. A guy on a motorbike is about to be obliterated by an oncoming truck when his guardian angel flies in at super speed and rescues him right in the nick of time. Now this does leave him very confused. He's baffled, but he's alive. So have a look at this footage and let me know what you think for yourself. The video was uploaded in September 2012 and has been watched over 11 million times. Is this proof of a higher force? Well, it turns out that actually this is a hoax. It's a viral marketing campaign for a Chinese game called Dragon Totem Girl. Makes me kind of sad. Speaking of guardian angels, it seems one showed up at a hospital at number 5. I found this image alongside the story of Chelsea Banton. Chelsea was 14 when she nearly died of pneumonia. Now her illness had reached the point where doctors recommended switching off her life support. Her mother made the unthinkable decision to follow the doctor's advice. Now it was thought that Chelsea would quickly die, but she survived the night and then began to make a miraculous recovery. One of the nurses had reported a man standing by Chelsea's door, and when her mother seemed totally baffled by it, they watched over the CCTV footage. This is what they saw. Whether or not it's just a patch of light from a particularly sunny window, or whether what you're seeing is actually the figure of an angel, one thing's for sure, what happened to Chelsea was an absolute miracle. Coming into number 4, we have this Stairway to Heaven. In July 2018, footage from Tuscaloosa, Alabama was uploaded to the internet. The video was shot on a stormy day and the camera captures the dark clouds, only there's something going on in those clouds. If you look closely, you can see what looks like 2 people walking through them. Now they don't appear to have wings, but could these be angels anyway? It seems that the footage was shot as part of a live stream and only later were the figures spotted. On YouTube, the miraculous video has been viewed 2.2 million times. Now Alabama is a pretty religious place and it seemed to have many people locally as well as further spread across the world totally convinced of heavenly activity. There's something similar happening in Ghana at number 3. A Ghanaian news channel reported on a strange sighting in Danzaman, Ghana. The news presenter shares the video, so maybe angels can choose to have wings when they want, and maybe sometimes vampires can't go into the sun, but then maybe sometimes they glitter like Edward Cullen. See what I'm saying? Coming in at number 2, we have fairies or tiny angels. Anyone watching who's roughly my age or a few years older from the UK, do you remember Goldie Looking Jane? Because I certainly do. I really enjoyed them as a teen, and you know what, who doesn't love a bit of Welsh rap at the best of times? You might be wondering what they're up to now. Well, let me tell you, spotting fairies in the garden. That's what. So John Rutledge, a member of Goldie Looking Jane, was out having a lovely walk with his dog in Newbridge, Wales, when he decided to take some snaps of the beautiful sunny summer's day. Now, if the sun is shining in the UK, especially Wales, you are going to want to capture that on camera. It turns out that John got more than he'd bargained for when he looked at his film. While he surveyed his pictures after his walk, he realized that he had actually captured what looked like 7 tiny winged humanoids. Now, are these little angels or are they fairies? Or are fairies just tiny angels anyway? The pop star said that ever since childhood he wanted to witness a paranormal event. He said, "The last thing I expected was a winged entity in a wood in South Wales, but there it is, smack bang in your face. It's solid evidence." Imagine him saying that in his Welsh accent. Solid. On closer inspection, the picture is seemingly legit. It does look like tiny winged people. Finally, coming into number 1, this honestly did have me convinced. We have the Russian landing. In 2016, on a live news broadcast in Russia, a bright light interrupted the host. Now, I don't know what she's saying, but maybe our Russian audience will know. The presenter seems totally shocked. Her reaction seems pretty genuine. What else could this be? We don't see wings or anything, it's just a ball of light, but it's really, really strange. And again, her reaction speaks volumes. Was this an actual angel caught on camera?
Starting off this countdown, we have the infamous Bigfoot. This footage of Bigfoot is the one that started this whole Bigfoot craze. If you Google images of Bigfoot, this is surely the one to pop up. So back in 1967, 2 men were creating a short film in Northern California when they ended up capturing footage of Bigfoot. In the footage, we see him walk by a wooded area. Over the years, a number of people have attempted to debunk this footage. but none have been successful. Is it possible for it to be someone in a gorilla suit? Well, at the time this footage came out, the movie Beneath the Planet of the Apes also came out. If you look at the ape costumes used in that movie and compare it to the Bigfoot video, Bigfoot looks more realistic. People claim you can actually see the creature's muscles and such. How could someone make a costume way above its time? It's not possible. Meaning, this could be evidence of a real Bigfoot.
Coming in at number 9 is Dobby. Now I know this footage has been everywhere since it went viral in the last 2 weeks or so, but I too had to add to the hype and mention it as well. So a video was posted onto Facebook by a woman named Vivian Gomez, and the footage is basically from her security camera outside her home, which she says she has not altered in any way, shape or form. The video
Tasha was an unstoppable force, juggling teaching, parenting, and part-time studies, until chronic fatigue from type 2 diabetes drained her energy. She worked with Crystal Run Healthcare to find a treatment plan that could keep up with her dynamic life. Now, thanks to comprehensive care and continuous glucose monitoring, Tasha is back to living life on her own terms. Watch Tasha's story at crystalrunhealthcare.com/Tasha. The people of Crystal Run Healthcare, changing healthcare, changing lives.
video was taken during the night, and in it you see a tiny, scrawny white figure with big floppy ears and wobbly legs walking through her driveway, and mid-video it sort of does the chicken dance with its arms. It just kind of looks like this. It's very strange. And yes, I think we've all pretty much agreed unanimously the thing looks exactly like a house elf from Harry Potter, and if that was in fact Dobby being a free elf, then I fully support whatever it was he was doing. But that also makes me really sad, because if house elves are just roaming about, then I'm clearly just a bloody muggle, and that just sucks.
Moving on at number 8, we have Allegheny National Forest. In 2007, hunter Rick Jacobs decided to mount a wildlife camera to a tree in Allegheny National Forest, Pennsylvania. The camera worked on a motion sensor and would take photos when triggered. He had hopes of capturing photos of bears, deers, and other wildlife. Little did he know that he was about to capture evidence of Bigfoot. So on September 16th, 2007, upon reviewing the photos on the camera, he discovered a creepy picture of what appears to be Bigfoot. However, skeptics believe that it's an image of a sick bear. But the way that it's hunched over with its back leg extended makes it look like Bigfoot. In our 7th spot, we have Marble Mountain Bigfoot. If you are a Bigfoot enthusiast, then this is another well-known sighting to you. In June of 2001, a group of teens and a leader, part of a youth group called Campus Life, were camping at Marble Mountain. The group ended up finding a weird den made out of twigs and large branches. Then shortly after, the leader, Jim Mills, noticed a weird-looking creature moving nearby. He filmed it for 7 minutes. To this day, this is the longest video footage of an alleged Bigfoot sighting. Experts have analyzed the footage and have agreed that it's not a human, and that the creature is 9 feet tall. When the Bigfoot noticed the group of people watching it, it began jumping up and down, screaming, and then it pushes a tree. It was just probably trying to scare off the onlookers. Making our way down the list at number 6, we have Lake James Bigfoot. Back in late 2019, a man named John Bruner and 3 other men went on a boat late at night, scouting an area on Lake James. Apparently, that night, fishermen had seen something watching them from the shore, so these folks went out to investigate. That's when they started to hear weird noises coming from the cove. They turned off the boat's motor and used their night vision cameras to scope out the area. That's when they saw Bigfoot and got 121 pictures of it. The creature was estimated to be around 7.5 feet tall. At one point, they claimed that the creature was just standing, swaying back and forth while watching them. After 5 minutes, the creature walked away. But again, like all photos of Bigfoot, these photos are terribly blurry. All 121 of them. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with webcam Bigfoot. Bigfoot just keeps blowing its cover. Now it seems like he doesn't care if he gets caught. Also, let me say that Washington State is notorious for Bigfoot sightings. There have been tons of sightings over the years, so Bigfoot must have a home somewhere around there. Anyways, this time Bigfoot was caught on the Department of Transportation's webcam. The webcam was located on Sherman Pass on State Route 20. It caught Bigfoot crossing a mountain pass. Then you see it lurking behind some trees by the road. Whatever it is, it looks massive and hairy, just like Bigfoot. In our fourth spot, we have the Russian Bigfoot. Bigfoot is said to mainly live in Canada and in areas of the US, but this video may prove that Russia is also home to Bigfoots. So this footage was shot back in 2016 and features Bigfoot chasing a car. In this video, you can see a black blob appear in the distance, only to then start coming closer and closer to the car filming it. I mean, the creature moves pretty fast since it manages to catch up with the car, which keeps driving away from the creature and then stopping to get more footage of it. At one point in the video, the girls are yelling to close the window and can be heard saying, "He's coming, he's running." Apparently, the creature actually jumped onto the car and broke the glass, but obviously they were not recording when that happened. So yeah, apparently Bigfoot in Russia are super aggressive. Also, is the plural of Bigfoot big feet or Bigfoots? I don't know. Big feet. In our third spot, we have the curious children. In January of 2013, 3 Russian children were out playing in the snow when they stumbled upon Bigfoot. This case was actually featured on an episode of National Geographic. So the kids were out following a pair of footprints to the edge of a frozen lake. Along the way, they are laughing and joking around. That's when they see a tall, dark, hairy figure in the distance. When the creature spots them, it turns and runs away super fast. The kids get scared and run away as well. They described to National Geographic that the creature was tall and covered in hair, except it had no hair on its face. The children and their parents all believe that they spotted a real-life Bigfoot. Coming in at number 2, we have the game camera, another Bigfoot sighting in Washington state. In attempts to catch a supposed Bigfoot that had been lurking around the area, they set up a game camera hidden in a fake rock. They did this as a way to trick Bigfoot. The camera and rock were set up in a man's yard, who claimed he saw Bigfoot lurking there 9 months earlier. Well, they did capture something alright. If you look at the photo, it just kinda looks like a blurry mess, not gonna lie. But they believe that it shows an eye with wrinkles above it, part of a nose bridge, part of another eye, and a forehead. In fact, this image matches the eyewitness drawing of the creature. The photo from the game camera was placed on top of the drawing, and it lined up almost perfectly. Pretty creepy if you ask me. And in our number 1 spot, we have 911 Bigfoot. This next sighting is so creepy. A man calls 911 saying that a tall, dark figure is in his yard. In fact, the full actual call is online available to be listened to. So the call occurred in Washington state, aka Bigfoot Central, back in 1996. The man on the phone tells the operator that someone or something is crawling in his yard. He says that his sensor light came on and he saw something run across the yard. When the operator asks him to describe it, he says that it's a good-sized man or something that looks like a man. Then he says that the creature is about 6'8" and is really big. He also tells her that the night before his dog was killed in his yard. Then out of nowhere, he starts panicking, telling the operator to send someone immediately. A week later, the sheriff's office got a picture of what seems to be Bigfoot lurking in his neighbor's yard.
With someone or something crawling around out here. Do you see what person or an animal or? I can't tell. All I know is my central light came on and I just happened to glimpse and see this thing running across the yard.
In our number 10 spot, we have UFO spotting in Washington. 2 harbor patrolmen in the Washington state named Harold H. Dahl and Fred L. Chrisman spotted a UFO over the water of Puget Sound, Washington. It was 1947, and after this incident, they were approached by a man dressed in black that forcefully advised them to not discuss the incident further. This was one of the first sightings of the Men in Black. The men were described as being extremely mysterious, never looking the patrolman in the eyes. Ooh, probably to cover up their reptile eyes, am I right?
Coming into number 9, we have the Texan experience. Danny Ferrero was driving in Texas in July 2018 when he saw something beautiful in the sky. He stopped to take a picture of his view down Highway 105 and then shared the image of the sun setting in the clouds on Facebook. The beams of light through the clouds very much looked like an angel spreading their wings, and the good people of Facebook thought so too. The image was shared on the social media platform 12,000 times. Ferrero said that the sighting came at the right time. He'd been having some family issues. He said, God can speak to us in many different ways, and for that, I'm thankful.
In our number 8 spot, we have the president's Men in Black. In 2012, it was discovered that President Obama of the USA had a few men in black working for him that could have very well been from another world. Footage was discovered of his security at the US-Israel Policy Conference, and they were looking rather alien-like. From the front, completely normal. From the back, we see a bald man with no ears and a pointy chin. His nose looks short and rounded, and his eyes appear to be dark and sunken in. Do you think there were possibly alien Men in Black guards guarding the president that day? Have you met them yet?
Met who? There are ghost children possessing giant robots? Tell me how to stop them.
It's too late, Mr. President.
Definitely possible. In our number 7 spot, we have the Fire Watch sighting. A man named Gabe was working a shift at a fire watch tower in the woods when he saw a black SUV pull up in the wee hours of the morning. A few minutes later, the sound of a firearm went off. The next thing he knew, there was a knock on his tower and 2 large men in black were waiting behind the door. He opened the door and they immediately questioned him, asking him to reveal what he saw. He said he saw nothing, and after a moment, they appeared to believe him. They told him to never speak of this experience to anyone. Looking back, he definitely thinks he met one of the Men in Black. Originally, he chalked these men up to some kind of gang, but now he definitely thinks that those 2 men were the Men in Black. In our number 6 spot, we have the UFO researcher. In 1976, Dr. Herbert Hopkins, who is a UFO researcher, got a call from someone who claimed to be a rep from a New Jersey UFO organization. The man asked if Hopkins was alone and if Hopkins would be willing to share his research. Hopkins said sure and began sharing with him. Once he hung up the phone, a man was at his doorstep. He described the man as being bald without eyebrows, wearing a neatly tailored black suit. He had red lips and pale white skin. The man took out a coin and told Hopkins to watch it. It started to develop a silver color instead of copper, and then the silver became bluish and the penny was getting quite fuzzy, out of focus, blurred, and then it was simply gone. Apparently after this incident, he was instructed to destroy all of his research. In our number 5 spot, we have the Dan Aykroyd story. This story is wild to me because I have literally had the thought, why doesn't the dad from Crossroads barely work anymore? Did Hollywood cast him out? I've literally just thought about this last week. Well, that honestly might be the case, and I certainly wonder about that after hearing about how he shared this story with people online. So 20 years ago, in 2002, 20 years ago, wow, Dan was creating a series called Out There for the Sci-Fi Channel, and it talked about UFOs, alien abductions, crop circles, and all kinds of extraterrestrial research. One day he was in the middle of doing some interviews when he went outside between 42nd and 8th Street in New York for a break, and he went on a phone call with Britney Spears, funny enough, talking to him about their new movie, when he looked out at the street and saw a long black SUV and 2 guys in black outside of it. One was very tall and they were just glaring at him. He turned away for a second, and when he looked back, they were gone. He has gone on record to say that he knows what he saw, and there was absolutely no way that they could have turned on that street because he would have seen them. They disappeared as if they had some kind of cloaking device. He found out that his show was canceled later that day. In our number 4 spot, we have the Niagara Hotel. A manager of a hotel in Niagara by the name of Sovar and his security guard reported seeing a triangular UFO outside their building. A group called the Aerial Phenomena Investigations team reported the incident with the two men's consent. A few weeks later, two tall men in black suits came into the hotel and spoke with Sovar and the security guard. They freaked out the employees allegedly as they had identical faces, no eyebrows or eyelashes, and were very pale. These two men were caught on surveillance for the hotel, and that footage definitely makes me feel very nervous. A small part of me wants to go to Niagara and ask every hotel about this incident and just, find out which hotel it is. In our number 3 spot, we have the library. Apparently, a professor by the name of Peter Rojewicz claimed that he once was reading a UFO book in the library when all of a sudden a strange pale man wearing all black sat down next to him. The man suddenly began talking to the professor and asked him questions about flying saucers and his opinion on them. Peter said that he wasn't super interested in them. The man became very agitated by this. He eventually left, and the professor felt super uncomfortable. Upon reflection, he is sure that he met a man in black official. In our number 2 spot, we have the disc. A man by the name of Paul Miller experienced something so crazy one day when he was coming home from a hunting trip. He looked up and saw a luminous disc in the sky. The disc landed in a field and 2 humanoids left the craft. Paul had a weapon on him, and so he fired at the beings as he ran away, and he believes that he managed to hurt one of them. As he was running away from the scene, in a blink of a moment, he realized that he had lost time. It was suddenly 3 hours later than when he first saw the aircraft.